Yo guys, I got a spark which I'm going to use to ignite the fire for a brand new episode of Schooled for Game Show, where I take the battle classes from Skylanders Imaginators as a theme and create a video around said theming. So naturally in this episode of Schooled we're going to look at all of the battle classes from Skylanders Imaginators and rank them from worst to best. But of course there are only 10 battle classes in Imaginators, so this is effectively a top 10 video based not only on the gameplay of the battle class, but also the design of the Imaginators, because this is all Imaginator orientated. So if I don't like the aesthetics of a certain battle class, then the chances are they will be lower on the list. So without further ado, let's get into the number 10 slot, which is the Smasher class. Now, this class isn't hindered by any sort of aesthetic limitations, because, you know, you have all body parts and availability to you, including the head, legs, body, and arms and tail and all of that fun stuff. But truly what makes the Smasher class the worst battle class for me is the pacing. They are so boring to play as because they are so damn slow. And I know that's the whole idea of a Smasher, to sacrifice speed in favour of very powerful attacks. But the Smashers aren't even all that powerful. It underwhelms me how underpowered they are. So it's unfortunate how their lack of speed not only makes them boring, but isn't compensated for with their power levels whatsoever. And their animations and everything are even boring, so it doesn't make them fun to watch either, because all what they do is smash the ground or spin a little. You know, it's very generic, very one-dimensional animations. And what I mean by one-dimensional is the fact that, you know, they could have added so much more detail to these animations, but they didn't, and it's so unfortunate, because just like the pacing of the gameplay, the animations are boring. Smashes as a whole are boring, and that's why I prefer not playing as them when it comes to the Imaginators that fall under this class. But now we're going to move on to number 9 without further ado, that being the Ninja class. Now, the Ninjas are the complete opposites for Smashers, to where they're really fun to play as, because their projectiles are used to maintain a good distance, making them very effective in combat and everything. And they're also speedy, making their pacing very fast and fun. And they're also maneuverable as well, so it's just awesome to walk around with these guys at a quick, speedy pace and everything. But they are limited by their aesthetics, because ninjas don't have bodies, and it is really annoying that I cannot have an awesome looking ninja character with a body for my Imaginator. I mean, it is unique, sure, and it helps them stand out from the other battle classes, but I still wish there was an option, at least, to have the body. Taking that option away entirely really limits the creativity you can show with a ninja, because you have fewer parts to work with, and so the fact that it limits your imagination is highly uncool, and it doesn't even look great aesthetically either, so ninjas are so low on my list because of that very reason. Now we're going to move on to Swashbucklers at number 8. Now, if their gameplay is just as fast-paced as for ninjas, unfortunately they aren't as effective because they have larger hitboxes and they're melee-oriented if you choose the melee paths for them, that is, which is some more fun paths. That's why I choose to use those ones. And their gameplay is definitely fast-paced for sure, but unfortunately you're not going to be playing with them as long as ninjas, because they're way more likely to die because of that melee orientation, you could say. But that's where the Swashbuckler choice comes in. I love the fact that you can also choose to use projectiles if you so wished, even though it's not very fitting for the Swashbucklers and isn't nearly as fun as I was alluding to earlier. But anyway, if their gameplay is so much fun and fast-paced, then what makes them so low on the list, I hear you asking? The very fact that, just like the ninjas, they are limited in terms of their design and their aesthetics, because instead of having legs, they can only have tails. It is unfortunate that you cannot choose between the two of them, because having legs could create for way more creative and unique Imaginators from person to person, but unfortunately that creativity is taken away because they only have tails, and there aren't nearly as many Swashbuckler tails as there are legs, so again, that limitation really ruins the aspect of designing a Swashbuckler. Not to mention, the weapons also feel unoriginal and not really unique or distinct from one another, so the weapons aren't great, unfortunately, in terms of their detail. which for sorcerers even at number 7 is the complete opposite. Their weapons are very, very distinct and very cool to look at. But my main problem with sorcerers are the gameplay, because they have a very ineffective beam, which you have to be really close to even use, and it's not all that powerful either. It just reminds you of other better Skylanders like Double Trouble, because the sorcerers are just a wannabe version of them, just not as fun to use in terms of the gameplay, unfortunately. But at least they are projectile based, so you can keep your distance, even if projectiles aren't all that fun to use and now they are all that fun to watch because of the animations. But hey, one other thing really that's really cool about the Sorcerers even is the fact that they float in midair. It's a very well done animation, and it does make the battle class more distinct from the other battle classes, although once again I wish there was an option to turn that off, so that does kind of limit you and makes you not want to pick up a Sorcerer even over another battle class if you don't want the flight or anything, and also if you don't want to utilize the bland and unoriginal gameplay either. But that brings us on to number 6 for Bazookas. Now, they have some really cool weapons. It's a lot of fun to just walk around and rain destruction upon your enemies. But unfortunately for the Bazookas, they have very limited movement whenever you utilize your weaponry. Like, you can't really turn all that well, and it feels quite janky. So because of the feeling of it, it does kind of ruin the gameplay for me. And not to mention, it kind of disrupts movement a bit, because whenever you launch a third attack on one of the paths of the bazooka, you launch a more powerful shot, which is very fun to utilize, because as I said before, it's fun to watch as you rain destruction upon your enemies. But it disrupts the gameplay because it makes you stop entirely still, and so because of your lack of maneuverability, it does take out a lot of the fun of bazookas, so that's why they're at number 6. But moving on to number 5, we have Brawlers. Now, these guys are insanely fun. I love the fact that they kind of allow you the ability to brawl with your enemies. It's very fast-paced, and it's kind of like teasing your enemies in a way. So, being allowed to tease your enemies with jabs or strong punches or anything is incredibly fun to utilize. Unfortunately, the Brawlers aren't as effective in combat as the other battle classes because they are so melee based, and that does take out a lot of the fun because it's so much more fun to lay back from a distance and use your projectiles to finish off opponents, but that doesn't stop Brawlers from at least being fast paced and fun to utilize. Then we have Slingers with some very cool weapons that are very distinct and just fun to utilize as well, with the fact that they of course have projectiles allowing you to maintain that distance and have more fun because you're being hit much less often. And once again, you have no limitations in your design of these characters because they have all of the body parts and availability to you. So really, Bazookas can create for some very cool looking Imaginators without any sort of limitations whatsoever. And their gameplay is also insanely fun. Their secret techniques as well are also very well animated. Their volley shot looks really cool whenever it's performed, as does that little ability where they fly up and launch a bomb downward. It's just a very cool looking animation. And it's also very effective in combat as well, utilizing these attacks because you of course like either take out a line of enemies in front of you or jump straight over them, allowing yourself not to get hit. So very animations of this battle class is what makes it so much fun, but unfortunately the projectiles aren't as effective as the quick shot class, which takes our number 3 slot, because these projectiles are very button mashy, sure, but I love button mashing and it's very fun towards my game style, you could say. And so, because of a natural button mashing-liness, that's not even a word, but hey, why the heck not create a new word while I'm at it, right? But point is, the button mashing is incredibly fun, and it's also incredibly effective as well because these projectiles are so fast, and that also reflects on the pacing of the gameplay because the pacing is, the gameplay pacing even, is also incredibly fast and fun to utilize. And once again, the quick shot weapons look so damn cool. Like, you can have dual shotguns, dual high-tech pistols. They're so cool looking and so distinct. You could create a quick shot of any element and it would be very fitting. So again, with creativity on display with quick shots and just how much fun they are to utilize and effective even in their gameplay is truly what earns them the number 3 slot, but they're not as cool as Sentinels. Now, Sentinels are melee based, which, could be a problem because your enemies have a higher chance of hitting you. But the thing is that as a Sentinel, you are so powerful that you've defeated your enemies before they even have the chance to do such a thing. And not to mention, as a Sentinel, you have a lot of mobility and a lot of attacks that chain together really, really well to make for some very satisfying combinations which destroy your enemies. So it's fun to watch the destruction unfold before you, and it's also really fun to just utilize said combos, using a string of different attack buttons together and actually requiring some sort of brain power or coordination from you is incredibly fun because that's what you play games to do. You play games to have the interactivity, and Sentinels are very interactive in the fact that they have such great combos to utilize, and they have by far some of the coolest weapons. Like, seriously, a dual marshmallow weapon is so damn cool, and it's detailed as well. You can truly see the scorch marks on those marshmallows. It's amazing, and that's just a single example. There are several other Sentinel weapons to dig your teeth into, but easily the best battle class is the Knight battle class because they have the most distinct personality traits of all of them. Going for your traditional knights, meaning that they have the personality traits of valor and honor in battle. And so, of course, I would love to play the character that's associated with being honourable. It's a very positive thing to think about when you're playing with this character. The fact that, you have such an honourable personality to go alongside it. So these Imaginators have more personality than the others to make them fun to play. But you know what else makes them fun to play? Their gameplay. Once again, you can tailor it towards your own personal tastes when it comes to playing Skylanders. You can either have slow yet powerful attacks or quick and slightly less powerful ones. Of course, I prefer the much more powerful ones because that way you destroy enemies so damn quickly, because just like the Sentinel class preceding this, the Knight class is very powerful. And then we come to the weapons. Oh, the weapons look so damn cool. So, a sword is actually my favourite weapon of all time. And the fact that this game gives you the capability through this battle class to have so many unique swords that are distinct from one another and look so damn cool, it's just so nice to explore. Sometimes I'll just take one of my Knight Imaginators and just experiment with all the different swords with them, see how cool they look, and also there's the animations as well. When you're swinging your sword, it just looks so well animated and so much more cooler than just for generic spins and things like that from the smashers. And better yet, there is absolutely no cooldown from these attacks, so your gameplay never feels disrupted. So that's why Knights are just so damn good, and I love playing with them, hence why they are number 1 on the list. And I also have a personal bias towards Knights because I just love the idea of Knights and their personality and everything, as I was alluding to beforehand. But that basically does it for the ranking of these battle classes. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you in the next episode of Schooled. But until such a moment arises, peace.